So in this short video, we're going to be reviewing change management models, and we're going to focus on two areas, which are process focused and people focused. So if we look at the change management models as stated, there are generally two areas in terms of change management, which are going to be process focused or people focused. But what's the importance of change management? Well, companies need to change, and if they don't change, then they might stagnate. And if your competitors are changing, then they can become more competitive than you are. So over your life cycle of your company, you have to continually adapt, continually evolve, and continually change. And the question really is, how can I ensure that change management is successful? Well, if we look at the two different areas in terms of process uh, focused or people focused, there are two kind of like areas with different models applied to these. So in terms of the process focus, we're talking about Cutlers' 8-step change model, Lewin's change model, Deming's cycle PDCA model, the McKinsey 7S model, AdCar's model of change for the people process, nudge theory, satire change model, Bridges, the change curve, and Munoz 3-level of resistance. And really, it's a use of these different models. It's not saying that one of these models is the best possible approach, but really looking at all these models separately and seeing what elements you can pick out to implement effective change within your organization. Now, if we view Kotler's 8-stage change model, there are predominantly three different areas, which includes, creating a climate for change, engaging and enabling change in the organization, and implementing and sustaining the change. So, at the lowest level, we're saying, what is the reason why that you want to create this change, and you will also want to create a shared understanding of what you want to make and what changes you want to effect in the organization. In the second stage, you're saying you're really trying to engage your team so that they are motivated and enthusiastic to actually implement this change. And then the final stage, once you've built momentum, is to really fully embed the change within your company. So Lewin's change management model, also known as on-freeze, change, and refreeze. Now, Lewin himself is often known or regarded as one of the pioneering founders of change management, but it is worth noting that this model really only came into effect after his death. So the on-freeze section, this really is creating the desire to on-freeze the current status quo in terms of how what is undertaken in the organization. The next one, in terms of change, this is to implement the changes that you want. And then the refreeze is to solidify the new ways of working so that they become the new status quo, the new norm. Change model is the PDCA change model, and it's a 4-stage model to kind of help you improve your tools, products, services, and organizational processes. And it's a very good model to use to kind of like reach any goal or to have continuous improvement. So at stage 1, in terms of acting, here you understand and identify the issues. At stage 2, in terms of planning, you need to generate the solutions and select the best one. In terms of the doing, you need to implement the solution in a broad sense in terms of trialing it out. And then 4, you're actually checking to see if your results have met your expectations. And if they have, then you can roll it out company wide. And then the next stage is obviously to keep on following this cycle and to keep on improving as you're going along. So if we review McKinsey's 7S model, well, this is not a pure process model because it has both organizational process and the people process as well. So it's a kind of like a combination of the two. And this really change model is a strategic planning tool to determine if the company is set up in the right way to achieve their overall aims and objectives. And there's a few things to note with this change management framework. Firstly, that all of these are all interconnected. So this is saying a change in one area is going to affect other areas within the organization. And as you can see here, there's no hierarchical structure. So all of these elements are equally as important as each other. And the most important thing here in terms of this model is the shared values in the center in terms of the organizational culture and the way the company does its business. And this is at the center of the whole of this framework. And this is a very good framework, as it's said, in terms of combining both hard methods and processes and soft methods within the organization to see whether or not they should, in their system, achieve their aims and objectives. Now we're moving on to the AdCar model of change. And the AdCar model of change now focuses on the people change management models. And this change management model is actually quite different from others in that it focuses on the individual to create change within the organization, whereas other people change management models focus on the organization and filtering that down. And here there are basically 5 different steps of the AdCar model, which includes awareness of the need to change, the desire to change, the knowledge of how to change, the ability to implement the change, and the reinforcement to sustain that change. And as you go through the different stages, one level builds upon another to get the person to have that change within themselves and a desire to, so then that affects change within the organization. So the next people change management theory is the nudge theory. And the nudge theory is really kind of trying to nudge people to take specific action. And this works by leveraging the biases in every human being. So if we look at this statement in the middle, what do you read? You may not have noticed, in fact, that there are two the. So it actually reads, I love Paris in the springtime, but you probably read it as I love Paris in the springtime. And this is because you're not really using your reflective thinking, but really you're using your unconscious bias in terms of what you're reading, because you're sieving that information out. And in the same way, nudge theory kind of nudges people towards taking specific action that the company wants you to take, using the leverage of that bias. Now, the next model is Satier's change model for peoples, and we've got two axes. One is performance, the performance of the teams, and at the bottom you have time. And this model is saying that when you've got kind of like major unexpected change within an organization and you're working in terms of the performance of teams, things are always going to get worse before they get better. But the overall view is that over time things will get better. And with this model, there are 5 different stages to this model. The next model is the bridges transition model, and this model really helps to understand and to manage the human side of change by really mapping how humans respond to change. And it has 3 different stages. The first stage is the ending, losing and letting go of the old ways of doing things, and that can be very hard if you've been doing that for a long period of time. Then you have the neutral zone, which is kind of like the in-between. You're letting go of the old, but you haven't quite yet moved on to the new. And then the final stage is the new beginning. And here you're beginning to engage and you're beginning to do things differently. So the next model is the change curve, and the change curve was originally used to determine how people cope with a terminal illness. So this, will help you to understand how people emotionally experience a major disruptive change within an organization. And as a manager, it will help you to understand how to interact with those people going through those changes at different stages, which includes the shock, denial, frustration, depression, experiment, decision, and integration. So it helps the managers to understand at what stage people are at and how they should react and liaise and deal with different people. So if we look at the last of the people change management models, this is more as 3 levels of resistance. And really what people are saying is people resist change to protect themselves from harm. And at the bottom level, you have, I don't get it. People don't have the facts and figures to understand why the change is necessary. And then you have the next level, which is I don't like it. And here it's an emotional response to change. When people are in a flight or fight mode, then they can't emotionally connect and determine how they're going to get on with it. And then the last level, which is stage 3, I don't like you. It's not that they don't like you, but rather they don't trust your ability in order to get and achieve the aims and objectives or the change that you want. So if we think about, summing up these, we can see that we've used change management models in terms of processes and in terms of people. And, no one model or process or people is a best fit. But really what you need to do, you need to take on board all of these processes in terms of processes and people, look at the different models, look at the different elements and see what best fits you, and also take into consideration other models in terms of organizational behavior and human behavior motivation theory in terms of fitting in to the people focused models as well. So I hope that has given you an all-round feel for change management models.